name is Chris Champagne, and I am one of the LASARD facilitators, and I live in Covington, Louisiana, and work in some of the school districts close to me. Today, we're going to talk about visual cues, and they fall under I'm going to tell you first, this is the QR code that's linked to some resources that we've put in a folder for you. So if you want to access those resources, you can so through this QR code. So antecedent-based interventions are a group of strategies that focus on modifying or changing the conditions in an environment. And those are the conditions that trigger a learner to engage in interfering, or sometimes we call them challenging behaviors. So the idea of antecedent-based strategies is to prevent behavior from happening in the first place, right? So if we can look in the environment and observe the environment and see what the triggers are for students, a lot of those triggers can be altered or eliminated to prevent challenging or interfering behavior. And that way the focus is on the environment and not so much on the student, right? So prevention is the best strategy always. Lots easier to prevent than it is to try to eliminate a challenging behavior once it gets started. So in this family of preventive strategies, one of the biggest ones are visual supports, right? Visual supports are tools that are presented visually, and they support an individual to move through their day. And the thing about visuals is that they're space-based, right? You post or put a visual somewhere and it stays there until you remove it, so that someone can reference it as often and as much as they need to get the information they need. So when we say something, right, that's transient. Once you say it, it can't be referenced unless you say it again. So visual supports take us out of the business of having to verbally remind, sometimes over and over, individuals about what it is we want them to do. So there's a few types of visual supports. There are boundaries, there are schedules, and there are visual cues. And so today we're going to focus on visual cues. And visual supports can include, but aren't limited to, things like pictures or objects and or written words in the environment. And you guys know, in the environment, we encounter them all over the place. I mean, we have red lights, we have stop signs, we have the lanes in the roads, whether you can turn or not. If you go to the bank to withdraw money, there's all kind of visual supports that tell you what you need to push and what goes where. And so we all rely on visual supports to make it through the day, and our students, our children, are no different. The other thing I think to keep in mind is that most people tend to be visual learners. And so it's a good strategy, not just for kids who might have special learning challenges, but it's really good for everybody. So visual supports can convey expectations. They can provide predictability in an environment. They can provide clarity and understanding. They support organization, and they facilitate transitions. And so what we're going to do is go through some of these, and I'm going to show you some examples, many of which can be accessed through our website or through your resources that we've supplied for you. So just another note about visual supports: if you're already thinking about maybe what settings and what kinds of things you might want to begin to use visual supports or add to the visual supports that you already have, think about the things that you're having to verbally remind or cue someone to do throughout the day. So these might be the settings and the situations that are best. Place all your verbal reminders with a visual that the student can reference. This is going to reduce your frustration and also increase their independence. So visuals are only successful, though, if they are posted, if they are taught, and then if you reference them throughout the day, right? Just, hanging them or posting them is not always magical. It can be, but it's not always. Most of the time, you'll have to teach, you'll have to practice, and then you'll have to continue to reference them during the day. So they become part of the routine. So again, the kinds of visual supports we're focusing on today are visual cues. Visual cues can do things like tell what the rules are, tell what is coming next, tell a student where they're supposed to be or go, where they're supposed to sit, what is off limits, what's available, and where and how can I get help? And we're going to look at some examples of these. So environmental cues can be things like labels that help students know where to find and put things. And they could be things as simple as having a stop sign on the door, just to remind students that they need to stop when they get there and they're not allowed just to go through the door. And you've seen all the time, you see things like this. You see things like labels that are in the environment. Where does this go? And the one that has the homework could be a prompt as well. Oh, yeah, that's right. I have homework and it needs to go there. All the way to something more sophisticated for older students, like colored and labeled folders for them to put their work in. We could see visual cues that are communication cues, and those are things that are going to facilitate both expressive language, which is what the student is going to express to you, but they also can promote comprehension and understanding, which is receptive language. You may have students or children that have very limited vocabulary, or maybe don't use words to communicate at all. Or you may have students that have really big, huge vocabularies, but they don't know how to use them in social situations. So we'll show you some visuals that can help in those circumstances. So you could have visual cues, things like communication boards, where the student can look at or point to the answers or the selections. So these can be used for things like academics, or lessons that you might have, which are the ones on the left, or they can be used to help the student convey things that would be considered critical communication, right? I need to go, I need a break, I need help, I'm all done, I need to eat, I need to drink. Those things that are critical survival skills that your students may or may not have the ability to convey on their own without some support. So again, they could be things that you use in centers. And what you see here, these are communication boards. So someone has looked at that setting and that activity and figured out what are the peers needing to convey in that circumstance. So what does a communication board need to look like? What does my student need to be able to say and understand to participate with typical peers in that activity? So again, an animal lesson, maybe a transportation lesson, so that they can point or look at things and participate in the lessons in spite of their communication difficulties. So here again is the color one I showed you a minute ago and one with numbers. So again, critical communication. I need a break, yes or no. I need help, no, I'm all good. And then the one on the right is to convey to a peer, it's my turn. So these are just, again, some real critical things that kids need to have a way to say. This one is a little more sophisticated and actually would be more for the second kind of student that I described, which would be a student that has expressive abilities, but has more social communication issues. In other words, I have a lot of words. I just don't know how to use them in social situations. So this is a way to give them a script. This one is like for students that don't understand. A lot of times when they don't, They just, kind of withdraw from the lesson. So this is a way to give them some things they could choose to say. Can you explain it again? I'm still confused. I need more help. Give me another example. Can you check and see if I got this right? And for some kids, this is just all they need. They just need a cue. Another thing that we can give students are choice boards. And the next Lunch and Learn, we're going to talk a lot more about choices, but choices are another great preventive strategy, right? If I have choices in my environment and I have a say, then I'm going to be a whole lot more apt to be engaged and participate in what's going on. It's a very powerful strategy. And everybody deserves a voice in what they like, what they want to do, what they prefer. So here's just a few examples, some that would be for really little guys, like maybe a choice of videos. Again, the one on the bottom right would be for centers. So maybe they could choose the center they want to go to. And then the one on the top would be maybe for older students, where they get a choice of an assignment. And again, that's very, very powerful for participation and engagement. Here's just a simple one. They don't have to be pretty. This is just one that uses Velcro, and it's just real simple. This might be a student that can only see 2 choices. They can't have a myriad of choices. They can't deal with that yet. So this is today's lunch. The choices, 2 choices, pizza or chili. They pull the icon they want and they show you which one they're picking. This would be an activity menu that might happen early in the morning, and they could pick the activity that they want to go to. So all kinds of places for choice in the day. And again, the next Lunch and Learn is going to talk more about that. There may be some of you who have either very young kids or kids for whom icons and even icons don't have meaning yet. So you may have to use actual photographs for your visual cues in your environment. Or for some kids, we actually have not moved to pictures yet, and we actually have to use objects or to represent what their choices are. And again, just a couple of examples of choices of videos maybe they could watch during their lessons, which ones they pick. The next category of visual cues are behavioral cues, and those remind the individual of what the rules are and what the expectations are for certain settings and situations. We know that when we are clear about the rules and the expectations, that we are setting up individuals to be more successful. And what we talk about a lot is to review those before the actual activity happens, right? So you're referencing. Now remember, we're going to walk now to lunch in the cafeteria. Remember what the rules are for when we walk in the hall, right? So you're reminding them ahead of time, you're referencing the visual, and you're setting them up for success. I'm going to show you another strategy. This is based on the incredible 5-point scale, and there are lots of ways that you can use this visual strategy. It's designed to assign colors and numbers to things that are fairly abstract. So in this particular case, you'll see this one a lot. This one is for voice volume. Sometimes we have kids that talk really, really low or really, really loud and don't really have the ability to kind of sense that on their own. So this is a nice concrete way to do that. And I've seen teachers take maybe a paper clip with a bead on it, and you can slide it up and down as they talk, so that they have a visual representation to help them be more in touch with how loud they're being. So the colors on these always stay the same. There are some that you can download, not on our website, but on the internet, and the colors are different. You want to make sure they're always the same. So green, 1 is always green, 2 is blue, 3 is yellow, 4 is supposed to be orange, but it depends on your computer how orange you get, and then 5 is red. So you always want those to stay the same so that when you're teaching that for different behaviors, there's some consistency to it. Here's just another one with pictures for a younger kid. Today I use kind words, and then they're depicting it in pictures, and over to the right is just looks like and sounds like. And I think we have some of those that are available in your resources. Here's a couple of other examples. You can see the one on the left, I actually got the right colors. This is, again, a help scale. We talked about being able to ask for help as a critical communication skill. And so this would be something that you could post in near their homework. If you're a parent, you could post it in the classroom. So the notion is that everybody has things that are difficult for them. We all have work that's green work, or an activity that's green for us. No sweat, easy for me. I can do this by myself. I might even be able to help somebody else, right? All the way up to, just seeing this work. I know it's impossible for me and I'm going to need a break. So this helps kids to kind of evaluate and be able to be a little insightful about what their strengths are when it comes to doing work. And it gives everybody permission to have difficulty with some things. The one on the right is one you'll see a lot for anxiety. And it is a little more sophisticated because it adds that third column, which tells them what they can actually do. What is a strategy they can use to calm themselves? If you have students that have pretty good communication and are older, they can help you put this together. And even the little guys can sometimes draw pictures of what it looks like when they feel that way. So it's nice to engage them on these. This is one that's courtesy of one of my coworkers, and this is a great idea. This is using pictures of the individual themselves to show them what it looks like when they're doing the expected behavior. And in this case, it's keeping hands to self. So there's an exemplar. And then on the bottom are picture examples of relaxation strategies that the student can use. So the next one we're going to talk about, the next class of visual cues are transition cues. These help students know specific start and end times for activities that they're working on, and these pair really nicely with a visual schedule. Transitions can be exhausting and difficult. They're difficult for us. I mean, if you think about a day where you've been interrupted lots during the day and had to switch gears from things that you might have been working and focused on, it takes its toll. When you know what's going to happen and you know what time you have to work on something, you can pace yourself and you can prepare for switching gears. Surprise transitions, we don't like them, and neither do our students. And it can sometimes be a trigger for behavior that we don't like to see, right? So the idea of a transition cue is to give them some heads up that it's almost time to move to something else. This one is just old school Velcro and icons. And the good thing about this one is it's not based on real time. So you can tailor it to your time, the time you know the student needs for a particular activity, and just move the icon so they can see that when it's in yellow, their time to spend on it is coming to an end. Then we have, things that are on your phone, things that are on your board, timers that are a lot more sophisticated that are based on real time. Here's another one that's more old school. This one could be on laminated paper where you could kind of check as you're winding down on time, again, so that they can anticipate and pace. Transitions are going to be particularly difficult if the individual is transitioning from a highly preferred thing to a non-preferred thing. So you want to make really sure that those transitions are planned out, organized, that they have plenty of warning that they need so they can gear up for the switch to make those transitions smoother. So again, just an example, you can use your phone to set a timer. And then the one on the left is just another example of a transition visual cue that tells the student, so I'm getting a 1-minute warning. What does that mean? What am I supposed to do? So this, again, for a younger kid, but you could put the same thing for older students who might need it with just different pictures. Stop what I'm doing, put my things away, and then wait quietly. The next one we're going to talk about, this class of visual cues are social cues. And sometimes your communication ones and your social ones kind of bleed over on one another. But these are cues to help individuals understand social norms. We have lots of kids, some of whom might be on the autism spectrum, but not necessarily all of them. Some of them who have maybe some executive functioning skill deficits will have difficulty navigating social situations. For all of us, there are certain social situations that may be more problematic and more stressful than others. And so this set of visual cues is designed to help them navigate this. They can teach them social skills and again, help them navigate difficult situations. So here's one about greetings. When you enter a room, see someone you know, or meet someone new, it's nice to greet them. So again, you're kind of telling them a social norm. Then you're giving them some concrete things to do. You smile, you use a friendly voice, you look at the person and you say hi. Here's a real simple one for younger kids, and it also gives them, something to manipulate. This is just a bead on a pipe cleaner that says my turn, your turn, which again, socially can be very difficult for kids, not even just young kids, but kids in general or students in general. Here's another social cue where you might be able to show them this card. Again, you're getting too loud, you're just right. Voice volume wise. This one's for kids that might have trouble with proximity and kind of what we call space invaders. So you could show them, maybe again with the bead, you might want to use this to slide it up and down and practice this with them where they move in close and then you show them the just right distance when interacting with someone. And then here's one. This is more of what we call a social story. That's really, really helpful for kids. This one is fairly simple. They can be even simpler than this, but this one has a combination of words and pictures. And again, would be designed for those kids who have problems with keeping the appropriate distance from people that they're interacting with. So it's just everyone has a bubble space. This is your personal space. Again, you can rehearse this with them. People like to have personal space to feel safe and happy. You're kind of explaining the norm. I should stay in my personal space, only touch school supplies. You're giving them an instruction of what they should do, that they should respect personal space, keep their hands to themselves. And if they do these things, people will feel safe and happy around them. So it's a way to explain social norms, to give them some concrete things that they can do, and then to explain to them the social significance, if you will, and give them some perspective about that behavior and what it's going to mean to the people around them. So those are just some quick ideas for visual cues. There are more on our website that you can download for free. And again, if you access this QR code, you will have access to many of the ones that we went over today. Our next Lunch and Learn is going to be on November the 11th. And again, we're going to stick with antecedent or preventive strategies. And this one is on choice making, which is one of the easiest things you can get used to doing throughout the day that are really, really going to improve engagement, participation, and reduce challenging behaviors in your setting. I want to thank everybody for being with me today. I enjoyed seeing you, and hope to see you again on future Lunch and Learns.